Joining us now is Liz Harrington, the national spokesperson for the Republican National Committee. So Liz, on Monday, we saw the group known as the Lincoln Project put out an ad that is very adversarial to the president, going against his coronavirus response. We played the president's response right there, which was a pretty fiery response, too, to say the least. What do you make of these Never Trump Republicans who have voiced in the past that they'd be more willing to vote for Bernie Sanders than President Trump?
Right. They're certainly searching for relevance after being wrong for so many years and being proven wrong in all of their predictions. And they might as well change their name from the Lincoln Project to, I don't know, the Wilson Project or the FDR Project or any other Democrat, maybe the Obama-Biden Project, because basically they're just Democrats at this point. They're not representing anything remotely close to the Republican Party. And if you see President Trump's leadership, it's no mistake as to why our party is more unified than we've ever been. And it's because he's followed through on the values and issues that we care about, not just talking, not just going on cruises, not just enriching yourselves through scam packs in Washington. He delivers real results.
I think it is somewhat funny, too, because when you acknowledge the fact that the president has, let's lowball it and say an 85% approval rating within the Republican Party, that means that their perspective is shared by maybe 10% of the American electorate, if not that, which even makes it a little bit more funnier that they have a disproportionate voice on networks such as MSNBC and CNN. It doesn't necessarily really add up. But when we talk about this, too, at one point those individuals were Republican strategists, respected Republican strategists, and now they are known to be on the fringes of the party. Has the Republican Party changed under President Trump?
I think it's become stronger. I think it's become more unified. And I think we've really solidified our values. If you look on issue after issue, 193 federal judges confirmed to the court. Those are originalist judges, conservatives. If you look on the pro-life issue, this president has been the most pro-life we've ever seen, more than President Bush, more than any other previous president. And if you look at securing our borders, restoring our military, rebuilding it, I mean, these are promises that Republican politicians and politicians in Washington had made for decades. But President Trump's the one who's delivered. And if you look at, tearing up the Iran nuclear deal, getting out of the Paris Climate Accords, moving the embassy to Jerusalem, that's a promise that has been made by politicians of both parties. President Trump's the one who delivered. And that's why he's has such strong support within our party, because he follows through on the values we care about.
It is interesting, too, because when you talk about Democrats, for example, who aren't necessarily on board with Joe Biden, you'll hear a lot of supporters say, well, don't vote for Joe Biden then. Vote for the Supreme Court nominee who will eventually be appointed for Ruth Bader Ginsburg, whoever may surface. Vote for the more democratic principles. And then you hear from the individuals I mentioned from the Lincoln Project. They don't share that same mentality when it comes to conservatism. They don't care about the judges that are being put out there or the Supreme Court justices. It is a strictly anti-Trump type of vote. So I think that's a little bit of the disparaging differences there that we see between the two type of demographics. But speaking of Joe Biden, he's kind of marching along, keeping a low profile amid these Tara Reade allegations. We are seeing more of the Democratic leadership speaking out against them than the actual Biden campaign itself. Do you think this will be a type of story that blows over and won't be a big issue come November?
Well, the longer he hides from the question, the longer the media tries to just move on, I think it raises more questions in the minds of voters, because we're not getting answers. Why isn't he not having to answer the fact that this woman's mother called into CNN Larry King Live at the time of this allegation occurred? And Nancy Pelosi is out there saying, oh, I'm not going to answer this question again. Was any Republican ever afforded that in the case of any of these wild allegations that were hurled at Brett Kavanaugh or President Trump? Was any Republican allowed to get away with saying, oh, I've answered this, it's time to move on? I don't think the voters are going to be willing to accept that. And now there's more questions than answers when it comes to these records that the taxpayers are funding at the University of Delaware. Why is Joe Biden, who's supposedly running on his decades-long career in the swamp, why is he afraid to let us see the paper trail that comes along with 48 years in the swamp? We deserve to see those made public, and those conversations with Vladimir Putin and other elected or leaders across the world, that Joe Biden seems very interested in keeping those hidden.
So when it comes to this issue too, do you think a big component of it is just highlighting the media hypocrisy that you're talking about right now? For example, the presumption of innocence that wasn't guaranteed to Brett Kavanaugh, for example, but now is being applied to Joe Biden. Do you think that's really a big part of this?
I think it's a huge part of it. And I think it was a huge part in 2016. And Democrats and the media never learned the lesson of why they got that election so wrong. They never took a chance to look in the mirror. And instead, they've doubled down on conspiracy theories. They've doubled down on throwing every journalistic integrity rule out the window. They've not followed through on getting to the truth and covering things fairly. And so they've just gotten worse and they've lost more credibility. And that's why I think you have voters looking to other places for their news, looking for more fair, unbiased information because they're not getting it from the press. And the Democrats, they haven't focused on the American people since 2016. It's all been witch hunt after witch hunt.
No, I think you're right. And I think the American people see that too because it's such a blatantly obvious hypocrisy. I mean, even my more Democratic friends, who a lot of them who are sympathetic with the Me Too movement, things of that sort, say that they recognize that this is a hypocritical type of position that a lot of people in the media are taking right now. So I think the American people are smarter than a lot of those in the media are willing to give them credit for. But Liz Harrington, always a pleasure speaking to you. Thank you for coming on tonight.